Glory to your house, the house of Apollo, where the echoes of legends are all we follow. Turn it up, feast your eyes, feel the fever ignite. Glory to your house, we burn through the night. We burn through the night.
So here we go again. Another legacy franchise launches a new show or episode, new season, whatever. Immediately followed by another round of critics praising the message. Another round of the audience quietly choosing not to show up or wince in pain. And then right on cue, as the audience walks out the door because they can't take it anymore, an outlet comes in running to the rescue. And never, well, to argue the merits or the quality of the show that everybody else seems to be despising, but them, but to simply tell those fans who decided to reject the slop, well, that they were never allowed to be here in the first place. So before I do a super deep dive into the absurdity that is this article posted above, I want to take a second to ground this in reality and remind everybody what we've seen over the last 3 weeks. So, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, well, it does something unusual. Well, rather, I should say Paramount does something unusual, but not entirely unprecedented. Paramount chooses to launch the debut episodes for free on YouTube, obviously in an effort to, well, increase awareness, engagement, and to drive the conversation. Again, not unusual, unusual, but not unprecedented, as CBS elected to launch a Discovery on regular CBS because it debuted on CBS All Access and no one wanted it. And then during the COVID era, when everybody was trapped inside with nothing to do, they decided to debut the entire first season on CBS proper, and no one watched it then. So again, unusual, but not unprecedented. With that said, let's talk about what happened. The official YouTube premiere, well, it drew roughly 170,000 total viewers at its launch. 2 weeks later, it maxed out at a little over 260K. Its peak live concurrent viewers, well, that earned a meager 1,200 to 1,300 people. The engagement, well, that skewed negative. The dislikes outpaced the likes by 3-to-1 ratio. Now, mind you, this is a major studio debuting a flagship program for a major legacy brand over 60 years old with major promotional backing. Now, we're going to compare this to what two independent commentators, members of the new media, well, what they managed to earn by simply talking about the debut of this major flagship program. The Critical Drinker, well, his review video of Star Trek, or I should say Starfleet Academy, Critical Drinker, he earned over 850,000 views in under 24 hours, logged over 70,000 likes, and frankly, his video outperformed the official debut episode by 5 times in raw views, 10 times in engagement velocity. Nerdrotic, well, his video surpassed 400,000 views within 14 hours, matched, then exceeded the debut episode's entire YouTube audience in half a day. And during the live window, well, Nerdrotic / Gary, well, he streamed a stationary Spock action figure. Just let it sit there. That stream pulled triple the live views that Paramount's official broadcast did. Just a toy. Just sitting there. No script. Just Spock. That's it. Spock. Outdrawing a flagship franchise premiere. And oh, by the way, as of this week, whenever you happen to be watching this video, the debut episode has been pulled from YouTube, I'm assuming to hide its pitiful performance. So, in comes the Mary Sue. Instead of asking why the viewers didn't show up, the Mary Sue does what the Mary Sue has done for years. It attacks the audience. See the article that's posted over here. It doesn't rebut anybody's arguments about the writing, the pacing, the tone, or the legacy. It just simply moves to disqualify the critics. The Mary Sue, especially the article's writer, Rachel Leishman, well, she goes out of her way to name the critical drinker and the nerdrotic specifically. Then she draws a line around who is allowed to be a fan. Her line in particular, I have it posted here in the picture. Well, if you're a if you are a Republican/MAGA personality, Star Trek was never yours. This declaration is not a critique, but it sure is an exclusion. And what I love about this is it's exclusion from a group of people who demand inclusion by any means necessary. So, as usual, inclusion via exclusion. I know it doesn't make a lick of sense, but that's how these people roll. So, for context, this is not anything that is new. Rachel Leishman, in particular, has been running this play really since 2016. She's done it across fandoms, and she does it anytime and every time the audience demands quality over the message. Her pattern is consistent. Do not rebut the criticism, question the critic's legitimacy, redefine the franchise ideologically, then declare that any form of dissent is immoral and or illegitimate. This is not debate. It's control. Here's the real issue underneath all of this. See, Rachel thinks that if she speaks incorrectly loudly enough, long enough, that this somehow makes her correct. It doesn't. By the way, there is delicious irony in here because in the body of her article, she claims that, well, everybody but her is doing this. Everybody is wrong. Everybody's speaking loudly and everybody's speaking correctly. And because they're speaking loudly, that means they're right. Oh boy. But what's funny is that is exactly what's happening in the body of this article. Because if you use enough boldface print, enough exclamation marks and quotations, and if it's long enough, you use enough paragraphs, you're right by sheer force of will. But let's take a second to kind of chop down how she tries to frame where her argument or lack in thereof is actually legitimate. So what she's done here in the body of the article is one of my favorite things that the left tries to do. She goes above and beyond to recontextualize Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek itself. Not with facts, but again, via the sheer force of her confidence. She speaks over the show's history, she strips away the context, and then on top of that, she tries very, very forcefully to speak over the show's audience. She goes out of her way to frame Roddenberry as hosting modern socialist democratic ideology. As if Star Trek was in some weird way built to, reaffirm today's left-wing political framework. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, that framing only works if you ignore an inconvenient truth. That being that today's political language versus that of the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, even really up to 2008, well, it doesn't exactly map cleanly to today's ideological divide. Frankly, many Democratic Party policy positions, especially from the eras I just listed, specifically labor, trade, borders, crime, foreign policy, well, by today's standard, well, many of those policy stances would be considered moderate to MAGA. Do with that what you will. But here's the most important part. Star Trek's ideals are fundamentally post-ideological. They aren't rooted in modern partisan politics. They're rooted in timeless principles, moral and ethical clarity, duty, personal responsibility.
First duty of every Starfleet officer is to the truth, whether it's scientific truth or historical truth or personal truth. It is the guiding principle on which Starfleet is based.
Self-improvement at its core. Star Trek emphasizes control over one's emotions rather than indulgence, logic, reason, and consequence over impulse. The exploration of all sides of an issue, not just a fashionable one. Excellence through skill, competence, and merit in a demanding competitive field. Problems, they aren't solved by slogans. They're solved by highly trained professionals working together, respecting leadership, honoring a chain of command, and placing the greater good above personal grievance. Simple, right? But the reality of everything I just listed, from the mapping to what the show is at its core, acknowledging any of that, well, it destroys her argument. So instead of doing the work and trying to earn her validity from her opinion, she simply chooses to amp up the volume. See, she isn't explaining Star Trek. She's asserting ownership over it. And you have, I guess I'll put it more simply. As she asserts her ownership, and once you accept her loud, repeated definition, let's break it down. Dissent becomes ignorance, criticism becomes illegitimacy, fans become trespassers. And that's how you get, if you're a Republican / MAGA personality, Star Trek was never yours. Not because it's true, but because it's said loudly enough to sound authoritative. Again, along with boldface print and lots of expletives. Well, not expletives. I'm trying not to use expletives. I want this channel to be E for everyone as best I can. So I'll keep the language CW. But you guys know what I mean at this point. So, well, this is where the narrative shatters, right? Because you can't review bomb an audience not showing up to a free YouTube live stream. Again, no paywalls, no algorithms hiding the access. People just didn't show up. The audience chose commentary and the content of the critics over the creators, their messaging, and the actual show itself. That is not harassment. That's the free market making a decision in real time. So, here's the only question that matters. If her framing is right, why aren't more people watching? I mean, frankly, she's had over a decade of modern pop culture to prove her thesis. We can ask the same of Doctor Who, right? Because I'll say this, no one did an anniversary better than Doctor Who. The 50th anniversary was perfect. And then the message crept in, and it fell off of a cliff. Star Wars. In spite of The Force Awakens just being a brain-dead reboot of A New Hope, people tried to give the sequel trilogy enough leeway to be successful. And then The Last Jedi came. The MCU, well, after Endgame, it's been an unmitigated disaster. Up to and including Fantastic Four and Thunderdolts. No one cares. And maybe if I have time, I'll suffer through Wonder Man, which seems to, well, do what we thought it was going to do to begin with. And that is be an unmitigated failure. If the message first storytelling worked, if exclusion built an audience, if the fans demanding quality were the problem, don't you think that engagement would be rising? It isn't, but don't you think it would be? So before I wrap this up, I will leave us with this. George Orwell warned us, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they don't want to hear. Now, for the last 15 years, well, the legacy media and outlets like the Mary Sue, Kotaku, IGN, and the Nerdist, all of them experiencing decreasing cultural relevance and credibility, have worked overtime to leverage pop culture as a means to shift liberty's meaning. They want it to be, you're free to speak as long as you agree. So here's the hard truth that they just do not want to admit. They're angry. They're angry because they're not winning. They know they're not going to win. They know they can't win. Why? Well, it's simple. Audiences are not toxic. They're disengaged. They're not hateful. They're choosing quality. And when commentary outperforms your product, that's not hate. That's a verdict. So, if you like what you see in here, hit like, subscribe, and share. Because here at the House of Apollo, we don't just analyze pop culture. We fight for it.
From the ink of the comics to the glow of the tube, every twist, every turn keeps us locked in the groove. TV's flashing neon, check the microphone, with the speakers of